So the first thing I could say to you is don't watch the Spike Lee version first. So again, to give you my quick story regarding Oldboy, I knew the shot. I knew the hallway shot, and I knew the name Oldboy. I knew it as not in English. So that was a bit of a hurdle for me to get over. Fast forward a couple of years to Spike Lee remaking it in 2013. I took the back door out, and I was like, all right, I'll just watch the remake. It worked for The Thing. It worked for Scarface. How much worse could it be? And yeah, there's similar moments that you can kind of tie a string to and say, oh yeah, this is similar to the original, and changing the color of the umbrella, like, okay. And it didn't do anything for me. I saw it, didn't think much of it, and moved along. Fast forward to 2019, I've seen a couple of foreign films at this point. Raw, the French film Raw, is one of my favorite films of all time. Wild Tales, comedy from Argentina. I had started coming around, and there is the Oldboy collector's edition on Arrow. I said, you know what, fuck it. So as I've told you before in the Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance video, Oldboy was the first movie I watched. Let's get to that. After being kidnapped and imprisoned for 15 years, Odesu is released only to find out he must find his captor in 5 days. The thing that everybody points to, the thing that I've seen when it comes to Oldboy is the hallway scene. That was something that, you know, I knew that shot. In film school, I think they showed us that shot. And just to let you in on me from 10 years ago, if it was a different language, I didn't want to know about it. So my ignorance was really at peak levels back then when I was learning. So go figure. Happily now, I'm glad to add the two together. And by the way, I'm not saying that if you don't watch foreign films, you're ignorant. I'm saying I was. There's something similar to what I was talking about with the cinematography in Mr. Vengeance, with the sparing use of the handheld shot and using it for effectiveness to sell an emotion. That is done here in Oldboy. The cinematography, again, is noticeably great. On top of things like the hallway hammer scene is the connected dot, which I can't help but think of Tarantino now. So you look, Oldboy came out before Kill Bill. I get really big Tarantino vibes with certain things that happen in this movie, the freezing the frame and showing the connected line. Like it felt very Tarantino to me. And again, I understand. Oldboy was first. It's funny seeing things that I would imagine inspired somebody else. If it's subconscious, then it's subconscious, but I've associated that type of gimmick with Tarantino, so for whatever that's worth. People give Spielberg credit for the dolly zoom, which is really a Hitchcock thing. More ignorance, just ignorance, all episode. But it's hard to talk about this movie without getting into spoilers. This isn't really meant to be a review. This is just kind of my experience with something. So many years after its popularity, there's tons of reviews on Oldboy. So if you want a traditional critique, I don't think I'm going to give it to you. So, you know, this is just about me. This is about me. You're on my channel now, bitch. This movie, the name Oldboy, the hype behind it was at such a high rate. I don't know how to quantify this in language. So if this sounds crazy, then I'm sorry. I'm trying to paint a picture of what my brain sees. Fuego from Show Business, the horror show in Fuegotainment. Fuego often talks about the burden of expectation, and that could not be more prevalent for stuff that is so highly praised. And the longer you go through time without seeing it, and there's all this legend behind these movies, It's hard. It's hard to, if you had a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 was peak expectation and 1 was, you're expecting The Room. It's hard to go into every movie with a 5. It's just unnatural. You start hearing things, oh, Old Boy, now it's a 6. Oh, Old Boy, now it's a 7. So, by the time I had seen it, especially with film school and being on YouTube with film dweebs, there's a list that everybody has, and I mean, I kid with Emily about the stuff she hasn't seen, and the thing I would often get is, oh, you got to see Old Boy, especially when people heard that I had only seen the Spike Lee version. Mentally, my expectations for this movie were like a 9. And it's fantastic. It's great. I have no complaints. But the distance from 9 to 10 is 1, if that makes sense. I wasn't going into this movie at a 5. I was going into it with a 9. So it met the expectations. Would I call it a 10? Possibly, but we'll discuss this trilogy and number scores later. So maybe I was just whelmed. I wasn't underwhelmed. It was just, yeah, all right. I see why this is a big deal. Having the hallway shot ruined really kind of takes wind out of the sails. Like that I already knew about. So like it's like when you see a trailer, you're just like, all right, when is this thing coming? It's just natural. It's subconscious. You can't help but remember things. The movie's great, but I was expecting greatness. The third act is incredible. So here's something that I'm gonna make people gasp when I say this, but I need you to understand that I'm only getting an education now, the last 2 years or so, on foreign films. So, most of my film history, most of my film knowledge is grounded in American cinema. And what I couldn't help but think about during the third act, when I think of like fucked up things that happened in a third act of a movie, my mind always goes to how I felt watching Saw. I don't think the movie was great. It's not like I go back and say Saw is an incredible time. I was just had for the big reveal of Saw, and I just fell for it. Like that experience in the theater was just so huge. The combination of experiencing it with other people, hearing gasps, and the music is incredible. The one thing I'm learning about the American film going experience is we spend a hell of a lot more on the product. And it's bells and whistles and it's glitter and it's all this shit that you kind of get spoiled by. Again, I'm not saying Saw is better than Old Boy. I wouldn't be surprised if you told me Saw took some elements from Old Boy with the things they did in each other's third acts. You have to remember, I saw Saw 13 years before I saw Old Boy. But when I watched Old Boy, the big reveal, there was a couple of things that was going on. It's incredible. The last 25 minutes of Old Boy, the ride that we experienced through Dae-Soo it's incredible acting. I'll say that easily. Again, cinematography, brilliant. Just incredible. The apartment there with the, I don't know what the fuck you call that, but he's got a lake in his apartment. Just everything was awesome. I'm learning a lot more about how to interpret movies. I would have told you the best experience for a thriller, a fucked up third act, 7, Saw. Those are the two that I think of. 7, I didn't see in a theater. I saw at home, experiencing that for the first time. TV speakers, the music is rather present.
he didn't know.
Saw in a theater, just everything surrounds you. The sound, the experience around you. It's a little different the way I experienced a movie that's older than Saw through a TV, if that makes any sense. And again, we put a lot more money into our product than South Korea does. You can tell there's not, I don't think there's Foley work, there's strong Foley work, or there's just mixing that isn't the same. Perhaps there's no sound mixing. My knowledge of sound is awful. But I can point to the music in something like Seven, the music in something like Saw, especially Saw, that theater experience for that third act is something that, like, I put that experience way higher than the movie. But Oldboy, the movie is solid all the way through. That goes without saying, at least I think. But the experience, I just feel robbed of that third act. The shift that he goes through from this badass who's out for vengeance to just putty in the dude's hands is incredible.
Said to open it.
No! I'm begging you not to open that box. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. No, Mito. Please don't tell Mito. What has she done wrong? Please leave Mito alone, okay? If by any chance Mito finds out what happened, you dick, I swear to God! Forgive what I said. Boss, Woojin, please, you have to forgive me. You have to promise me not to say anything to Mito. We're evergreen old boys.
Something that I learned here is expectations for a big shift, a big discovery, a big twist. Is it's not always going to be accompanied by the big swell of music, the audio cues, the gasps, the surround sound. It's not always going to be there, and I realize most of you watching this are like, yeah, duh, stupid. But this is, I'm learning something here, even all these years after film school, after everything that I've been teaching myself and trying to experience, is that you don't need music for a solid twist, and a twist doesn't need to carry a movie. There's a big difference between Saw, and I'm just gonna keep trying to walk this Saw thing back. There's a big difference between Saw and Oldboy. Saw, it's an okay movie. It's a lot over the top with the gore, and then it kind of peaks for the reveal in the third act. Oldboy, you're going on this journey with Dae-soo. They open the movie with him holding a dude over a ledge, and like that's your first experience, and it just grabs you by the balls and says, okay, you ready? Then you go on this long journey with him. There's a scene in Oldboy where he's just so pent up. Woman going to the bathroom, she brings a knife with her, and he's still just trying to ravage her bones. It's the first female contact he's had in over a decade and a half. So you as an audience member, you understand why he's doing the thing that he's doing. I don't think that scene would ever happen in an American movie. I'm not saying the act is funny, but the way it's presented is funny. So I've talked in circles. The film's incredible. I'm going to say, due to the burden of expectations, this is a 4.5 out of 5 for me. It's a brilliant movie. I don't think it's perfect. And you kind of know 2/3 of the story now. Check back with me to see where this Vengeance Trilogy journey took me. Spoiler, you can get some of the story in part 1. But this technically is part 1 of my trip. Part 2 is in Lady Vengeance. Do me a favor and comment down below if anything I said made sense, because my brain feels like scrambled eggs right now. If you'd like to check back in on the rest of this South Korean saga, do me a favor and click subscribe, and you gotta click that bell to be notified of when this stuff comes out. Thanks goes out to my patrons for supporting all this silly shit I do in this channel. Other than that, we'll see you for Lady Vengeance. I've been CP. You haven't.